The jaw is arguably one of the most important aspects of a face. Throughout the Defining Beauty series, I've used and explained the concept of a universal beauty standard, something that people from all cultures, races, and creeds find attractive, as they're indicators of basic genetic health. Out of all of the facial features, the jaw is the largest, most prominent, and most noticeable feature of one's face. A recessed jaw creates malocclusion, a condition where the upper and lower jaw don't line up correctly, and this leads to a whole host of problems, from uncomfortable sleep apnea to painful TMJ. So it's pretty clear to see why the jaw is such a strong indicator of genetic health, because it's directly correlated to your health, unlike other features which lightly hint at it. Selectively, we prefer partners with well-formed jaws for their sexual dimorphism, where males are expected to have a longer jaw body and steeper ramus, and females are expected to have a shorter, shallower one. Before we delve any deeper into what makes an attractive jaw, let's cover the terminology. When plastic surgeons and orthodontists consider jaw surgery, they consider a few key parameters that influences the jaw's final shape. The first and most well-known one is the lower mandible, or what's commonly known as the jawline or jaw body. In our anatomy, it's often taught that the mandible should line up with the nasion of the face. Anything below this threshold is considered a recessed jaw. A longer, more prominent one, within reason of course, is more beneficial to increasing bite force, as the pterygoid muscles have a longer lever arm to generate more torque with. This is one of the proposed reasons for why we've always found strong jawlines attractive from an evolutionary survival point of view. The next important part is the ramus, which again helps with bite force, but not as much as the mandible, as men have a steeper ramus which goes downwards and doesn't help make the lever arm longer to amplify force. The length of the ramus largely determines the face shape, from long and oval to short and square. In men, ramus length determines, for lack of a better word, how masculine your jaw looks, and vice versa in women, as it's one of the main points of sexual dimorphism in the jaw. Sexual dimorphism here meaning biological differences in men's and women's anatomy. The ramus plays a role in attractiveness as it forms the next parameter, the gonial angle. The gonial angle or jaw angle is the angle the ramus makes with the mandible, and it's crucial that it's within 128 degrees for males and 126 degrees for females. Otherwise, it can lead to malocclusion and a whole host of breathing difficulties. The last term that I want to discuss for the sake of time is the bigonial width. This is essentially the width of your jaw, and another point of sexual dimorphism, as men have much larger bigonial widths than women. Now, I could show you a bunch of angles and numbers that go along with these terminologies, or I can show you lots of visual examples to help you develop an intuitive feel for it. From the Journal of Cranio-Maxillofacial Surgery, 2016, The Ideal Male Jaw, aesthetically, a fuller augmented gonial angle portrays a look of masculinity, and a stronger jaw is often desired. Here, I want to point out that for the purposes of this experiment, the participants are expected to choose based on the jaw that's ideal for a male model, and to exclude prominent cheekbones or other mid-face features for their criteria. In the first warm-up question, 52% chose the first one, which honestly surprised me because I'd expect 3 or 5. But excluding young Depp's cheekbones, 1 has the most well-formed, conventional jaw. With number 2, the ramus length is way beyond average, giving him a Minecraft Steve look, and number 4 has a jaw disproportionate to his face. As I mentioned in Beauty Culture episode 1, humans universally find averageness in features quote-unquote conventionally attractive. Number 1 to you might not be what the average man looks like on the street, but his features are average in proportion to his face, unlike 2, which has an above average ramus length and bigonial width, and 4 with an above average bigonial angle. The next question delves into how excess skin and fat conceals the jaw, and is not aesthetically pleasing, with 74% agreeing. Staying lean here is a huge benefit to facial attractiveness and skin aging. That's nothing new. The last and most important question goes over finding an ideal jaw shape. Participants were asked to rate the ideal shape. The results are about what you'd expect if you searched handsome guy on Google Images. Cases like number 6 got 0% rating as good out of 800 participants. He has a poor bigonial width, and the entire jaw is angled downwards instead of prominently forwards. This is seen in cases of children who mouth breathe, where a constant open jaw fails to provide the support needed to the upper jaw and maxilla to push it up and outwards, and so the entire face begins to sag. You can see it here with the puffy under eye as a result of the recessed maxilla and midface, and even in the photo he has his mouth open. Compared to how drastically different number 10 is, the bigonial width is wider, pulling the mouth out wider as well, making the entire face shape shorter and squarer, which, as I explained in episode 1 and 2, a shorter facial width to height ratio is ideal in men. They then repeated the trials, but this time removing the chin. There was a larger spread in results, but the mode still indicated square, short faces like Brad Pitt's to be ideal and longer jaws, longer faces to be unideal. Interestingly enough, square faces have the strongest bite force as the mandible is most perpendicular to the fulcrum of the jaw in these face types. The final trial considered the side profile of the jaw. Recessed jaws didn't score well, like number 6, but the best rated jaw wasn't the most prominent one surprisingly. Jaws like number 9 rated lower than jaws like number 15, both being super prominent and masculine jaws, but differing by their gonial angles, with number 15 having the population average angle of 128. The winning jaw angle was number 12, which has a lower ramus length leading to a more feminine, pretty boy look, like with BDS. Number 12 reminds me of Freddy from Skins, and if you're between the ages of 16 and 20 and haven't watched Skins yet, do yourself a favor and watch it. Although only one jawline can be the winner in this study, the differences between the prominent, well-formed jawlines is very close, whereas the recessed jawlines are a unanimous no. If there's one thing I'd ever recommend changing, it's fixing a recessed jawline, as the health issues only get worse with age. That's before even considering aesthetics. Now for the girls. An ideal jawline is a bit harder to define. That's because women can pull off a much larger range of shapes and sizes to be considered cute, hot, or somewhere in between. The recessed jawline isn't attractive on either gender, but it's less noticeable on women as prominent mandibles are considered a more masculine feature, and as such a must for one gender and an optional extra on the other. Women with recessed features can still pass off with a rounder face shape as it's considered cuter, but well-formed and prominent features are needed to be considered model tier attractive. Models like Zendaya, Madison Beer, and Megan Fox are considered hot because they have more masculine jawlines with larger bigonial widths. Almost all runway models have prominent jaws, regardless of their nationality or ethnicity. The main feature that separates men from women in these circles is the width of their chin and the submental region. Having a prominent jaw is really the gold standard universally, more so than any other feature. So what causes a recessed jaw? This is a big topic in itself, so I'm going to do a full video on it next week, but I'll give you the short answer now. One reason is due to mouth breathing, where the constantly open jaw doesn't give the upper jaw any support to push upwards and away from, creating a recessed maxilla and subsequent downward angled jaw. Another reason is due to poor tongue posture, which is a more recent proposal of Dr. Mike Mew. Again, more on that next week. And the final reason is due to our soft diets. A few weeks ago, I was sent an essay from a Sydney dietary student with a compilation of research findings on how the incidence of facial malocclusion has increased over time in line with our diets. A small snippet that I found interesting: dietary consistency and toughness promotes alveolar remodeling and proper permanent tooth eruption, bringing about adult occlusion. Alright, that's all for this week. Sorry I sound a bit nasally, I'm still recovering from a cold. The jaw is a huge topic and there's so much more to talk about, so I'll be releasing a part 2 very soon. As always, leave a like to support the channel and subscribe so that you don't miss out next week. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see the next video before it comes out, or ask me a question.